I believe we can start now, Rita. And so,
Okay.
as we have all come together here, welcome to FSHD cheat session, FSHD Feeling Fit with FSHD. This is a segment that we have been started, if I'm not mistaken, 2 weeks ago, where we have participants come on to contribute their own ideas, their own how they've been able to deal and manage their own FSHD over the years, using their own expertise from their own careers, or how they've been able to assimilate what they've been known to train as well with their education. And that's why we kind of come up with this FSHD cheat session. So today we have Rita, Lynn, Lawrence, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Yes, Rita Lynn Lawrence, and she's going to tell us about how she has been able to handle her own FSHD, and how we can be able to also use that for our own day-to-day lives. And I'll just give it to you, Rita.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me and for the introduction. I appreciate this opportunity to just share with everyone here, others that are going through similar situations. It's always, I say healing. That's actually one of the first kind of check boxes on my list of resources, like healing resources, is actually community. And it's something that a lot of us, and especially, when you go into doctors and, you're in the MD center, and they're not necessarily focusing on others and people, they're focusing on you, and kind of medical things. So what I have found in my journey, since my diagnosis, I had an adult diagnosis at age, I don't recall how old I was. It was 2019. So it's been about 4 years since my diagnosis, and I've struggled with symptoms all my life. But as many of you probably have also seen and realized, onset can be difficult to diagnose, because there is, there's often times where there is not atrophy happening, or there is not an episode of spastic, whatever it is that FSHD may cause for you physically. There are times where maybe it's not showing itself. And so as we progress in our journey, in our human body in general, and I just call it being aware of aging. Not, aging isn't something bad, but with the diagnosis like this, sometimes we can perceive that it will be bad, and or that it's even bad right now. We can perceive different things about ourselves. And what I've really found is that coming together with others who may not necessarily be going through this, but have other information that they've learned. So and these people have just been finding me, we've just been finding each other. But I have found here in Maryland, some partners, business partners, and we've opened a holistic center, and we do a variety of different holistic remedies and holistic resources for our people that are coming in. And this is all manner of diagnosis. Sometimes there's a muscular disease diagnosis. Sometimes it's an addiction diagnosis. Sometimes it's just trauma and PTSD, and I say just, but I mean things that you might not be able to see, right, with your eyes. But what we have found is that most humans at this point have something that they're dealing with and struggling with, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual. And like we here have something so very specific, and I would even consider kind of rare, especially for those of us that have issues. And like Lon Wabble was saying, that like with his clothing on, you wouldn't look at him and think, oh, he's got atrophy in his right arm and shoulder, and he's probably weak on that side, and he probably can't lift as much or as heavy of, those are things that nobody sees in us, that nobody would even consider. So what my team and I have come up with is just a few different kind of concepts or thoughts, and that we offer to our folks that come in. And it's kind of a give and take. You can take what you want, we'll offer these resources, and then people just take what they need and kind of what they connect with, and we call it resonate, what they resonate with. And so everyone's, again, very unique in your physical body. But holistically, we're actually all the same. When we think of a holistic thought or theory, integrative medicine doctors, what they believe, and many of them have all of the typical Western medicine education. Many of them have their masters, and many of them that I've been meeting are actually pharmacists and people that have really learned a lot about Western medicine. But then over the decades of their, I guess, practicing, they've realized that there's other parts of the human that can actually be important when it comes to healing, and not only healing, but just being human. We say healing because we often think that there's something we need to change or that we need to make better. But what I like to call it is that we really are all holistically, we are well. And that when we were created, and it doesn't really matter what we believe about creation, whether you believe in God or the universe or, divine creation, or if you're an atheist, like, it really doesn't matter, because there's really no answers for those kinds of questions. Like, we don't really know where we came from. But if we can find a holistic view of our origination, it can help us be more well today, even in our daily life, in our third dimensional body. What we believe about ourselves matters, and about our reality of who we are. So I wrote just a few tips because I have a habit of going on tangents, I'll tell you, and just getting off on things. So I do recommend, if you have specific questions as I'm going through these things, please type them in the comments. I can't see the chat right here, but I can take a look every now and then, or even raise your hand, and I want this to be a community experience. I'm not here as necessarily somebody that is like a professional. I just have the benefit that I love to read, and I know a lot of community, and I had a business previously where I live, and now I'm working more with my nonprofit, and it's a group of different organizations. So I'll just kind of list off the things that we've come up with. And this doesn't have to be specific to any certain diagnosis. It works here because personally, this is what I've adopted in my own life. And like I said, so my diagnosis was about 4 years ago, but it's been more about the 3 years I've been really putting all of this into practice. I didn't have good function of my arms, my shoulder blades. My atrophy is more in my back, on my shoulder blades and the backs of my arms. And so at the time, I didn't really have a lot of good functioning. I wasn't able to go to the gym. I used to, in my old life, run even. And at the time, I couldn't even walk. I couldn't even go for a walk because it took so much strength. Everyone knows the strength that it takes even to take a step at times. So I believe that God brought these resources to me. I do believe that this was a divine kind of realization of, and I just say who I really am. And that's so vague to some people, I understand. But what I mean by that is who I am holistically, and who I am at the core of my completeness. And so we're not just a body. There are some people that believe that we're a body, a mind, and a spirit. And then there's another set of community and theory that we are not even a body. If you've ever heard of a holographic universe or quantum physics, then you will learn and see that there's actually so many parts of what a human is that a quantum physicist wouldn't even describe us as a body. They describe us as an organism, or as a consciousness. And so there's different theories and there's different beliefs, and I'm not telling you here what to believe, but I'm just sharing what has helped me and my community here. So I'd like to start with medicine, because when we get diagnosed, we often do look towards that direction. what medicine can help. What does medicine have to offer me? And I see these emails coming through all the time. I've been really keeping up with FSHD Society, and I see there's clinical trials starting, and there's all these different, medicines that scientists are creating to find us an answer. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful that there are people that care enough to do that and to create that scientific platform for us. I really do. But what I have found in my own journey, and so many thousands and thousands of patients, and again, I'm talking about all different kinds of diagnoses, is that medicine isn't always the answer, and that the original form of medicine is helpful to look at. So the original, if you go back in history and look at where medicine started, it actually started with spirituality, with nature, with earth, with plants, herbs, herbal remedies, and nature. That was where medicine really began. And so what happened was, there's a lot of things that maybe wasn't helping, and it wasn't giving answers. So then we created science, and we're like, well, we can do better. We can enhance nature and enhance our, natural being with science and with actual creations of different chemicals, different compounds. A lot of them are created directly from plants, right? They take like a little snippet of a compound of a plant, and then they'll create something stable that they can recreate again and again and again. So anyway, but what we like to say is that when we talk about medicine, we really like to lead with food as medicine, and that our food and what we intake every day, multiple times a day, is actually our first medicine. And if we're not addressing that medicine, quote medicine, first, we can be taking pills and different types of medications that might not even work, because our base medicine, which is our food, isn't really on track or balanced. And so I hired a nutritionist is what I did. And I hired a professional because I didn't know what to do. And my muscular dystrophy doctor was recommending higher amounts of protein, more protein in my diet to help with the muscle issues. And at the time, I thought I was a vegetarian, and I didn't really even want to eat animals. So I was like, what do I do? So I actually contacted a nutritionist and asked and got some professional advice. And I learned about plant protein. I learned that there's tons of plants that actually also offer our bodies protein. So we don't actually have to eat meat for protein. But making sure that we have an amount of protein in our diet every single day, no matter what, is really important for us who struggle with muscular atrophy issues. Like, it really can be. And over these 3 years of putting that into practice, I do see that it is helping. Just the fact that I can use my arms and lift them where before I could not, it's literally a miracle to me and my kids and my family. Like this morning, I was able to slowly cook the family breakfast, which I thought I could never do that again. And so I believe that food is our first medicine. And then it can go deeper, right? Like there's a triangle. You know how the food triangle, there's a food triangle? Well, we have a plant medicine triangle. And so at the bottom is like basics, like lavender, sage, mushrooms that are like reishi mushrooms, the kinds that you would just eat in your everyday diet. That would be the bottom of the pyramid. And then the top of the pyramid is psychedelics, and actually plants that are very medicinal and that are not for everyone, and that we don't actually recommend necessarily, because that also depends where you live and what's legal where you live, right? So I'm all about safety and doing the right thing. And I think that that's important, but you can do your own research where you live, and you can find out, are psychedelics legal? Is medical cannabis legal where I live? And find out what's legal where you are, if that's a concern to you. Now, I did delve into all these things when I was living in a state where it wasn't legal. And it was because I had been introduced on a very micro dose level of what the results could be for some of these plants and fungi that are more at the top of the pyramid. And the miracles were so bizarre and beyond what I ever expected that I have to mention it to you here today. And especially with folks that are struggling with range of motion, spasticity, limited in your physical body. Like that's one of the beautiful resources that I would love to just mention. And then the next three are really don't have anything to really do like with, say, the earth or nature or food or anything like that. They're more of, I call them work steps, things that we can do for work. You know, at the time, again, I couldn't work out. I couldn't even go to work. I didn't even think I could ever have a job or a career, anything like that again. And so I was basically giving up on myself. And then when I realized that there is a whole part of me that's still whole, even though there's a body here that maybe doesn't feel whole, there's still a part that is whole. And so what do I do about that part? And can I still do something with that part of who I am? And so that's where I came up, or we did in my center, came up with the next three steps, I would say. And that would be the first thing that is priority is spirit work. And everyone might not believe in a spirit. You can also call it soul work. Most humans believe we do have a soul. We can't really explain it. And so I call this a non-dualistic workout. So our spirit work, there's multiple things you can include depending on where your mindset's at and what your beliefs are and philosophies are in life. Prayer is one of the first ones I always list. And then finding purpose. We struggle with what our purpose is. I know I did after diagnosis. I had no idea who I even was anymore, what the heck life was even going to be about. And am I even needed in this life? I mean, I struggled with that thought. Does the world really need me right now? Do I really need to be here still? And so when that started coming in is when I realized that I needed to find more resources, and that wasn't a healthy thought. So finding our purpose, and I'll just give you a little example. I say my purpose now is peace. That's it. It's that simple. My purpose is peace. And if I can keep my peace, find my peace, and have my peace every day, I feel I've met my purpose. And because then that will flow into my family, it will flow into my friends, my life, whatever I do. If I start with peace within me, then that's the foundation that I need. And that's just personally one of the things. And then so there's other things like forgiveness. There's actually courses and curriculums, meditations that you can do on forgiveness. Practicing forgiveness every day is something that I really find a holistic resource that is very helpful. And then community. And I mentioned that in the beginning, but community, and I consider that in spirit and soul work, because again, one of my beliefs and philosophies is that we live in a holographic universe, and that though we perceive a body and we sense we have a body, we're actually all just a state of consciousness, and that everything is really starting within our mind. And I even go as far as to say in the mind of God, because that's where I do believe we were created, in the mind of God. And I know that gets into more philosophical, things, and we don't need to actually go there. But if you have a faith or a religion or practice that you do or have had in your life that is good, that gives you goodness and peace, then doing spirit work and soul work can actually help grow that part of your life. And again, that's non-dualistic, right? Our spirit, our soul, it's all up to your interpretation and where you are and what your beliefs are. And then meditation is the step in there of the spirit work and soul work as well. Because I include meditation here because there's not always a lot of explanation. Now, the kind of meditation that I do teach and guide at my center is called mantra meditation. Some people have called it transcendental meditation. And I actually did learn at a transcendental center. And I'll show you this so you can take a look and see. TM is actually a technique that is taught. And the website, if you care to go there and look, is tm.org. I don't work for them personally. I'm not working with them or anything. I just have a teacher that I meet with every month locally. And I learned originally here at the center. They offer centers where people can go in person. And so that's what I found to be very beneficial. And one of the beauties is that it is scientifically researched, and it's the most researched type of meditation. And that gives a lot of people peace of mind. It can actually create a comfort zone where you see that so many others have found benefits scientifically, and then it's easier to kind of step into that door. It's evidence-based. It gives deep relief from stress and anxiety, a brighter, more positive state of mind, enhanced brain functioning. We can actually improve our memory and awareness through meditation, and a healthier heart. We can reduce our risk for heart disease, which as we age, it doesn't matter what our diagnosis, maybe we don't even have a diagnosis, right? We see people struggling. It's the biggest, I say, killer in the world is heart attacks, heart disease. So anything that can help us have a healthier heart is beneficial to our well-being, I believe, and our quality of life. So meditation. And then, so that's the spirit work and the soul work area. And then the next step is mind work. And so mind work, meditation is also here. Again, because of all the scientific research and what it shows that our brains and minds actually achieve during meditation, and we might call it mindfulness even. There's all kinds of ways to do mind work. And it depends on your physical functioning of what you can really do, right? Like a lot of people will say meditative coloring can be so relaxing, but not if my arms are atrophy and I can't move them very well. Then coloring is not going to be very mindful for me, probably. So then I would look at something more like meditation, and there's so many kinds. If TM doesn't, if the mantra meditation doesn't sound like it's for you, then there's all kinds of different guided meditations, visualization meditations, nature sound meditations. There's also something called frequency meditation, where you can actually find a specific frequency and play it over and over through. And this goes kind of back to what we believe about our bodies. If you believe you are an energy body, or we're all made of energy, if you believe that, and if you can see that within science, then you could kind of imagine how the frequencies can actually penetrate our being. And I know as a third dimensional body, we're like, sometimes it seems a little mystical, but there are studies again that show the different sound frequencies and how beneficial sound healing can be. If you look, even if you just research gongs and sound bowl healing, way long ago, this is a part of our history that isn't often talked about now in the medical world. But sound is a great meditation technique that we can all use no matter what our physical body may be and what it may be experiencing. We can all find a way to hear and to listen, even if it's with earbuds. I understand pain can come in the way of hearing, and so reducing pain is definitely part of the mind work process. Before we can really begin with mind work, we really do want to address physical issues. If you're uncomfortable, we want to find a way to be comfortable first. And so when I teach meditation at my center, I don't go right into meditating and we start oming. We start with creating an environment, and we need to create our space that we can go to where we can feel meditative and mindful. And oftentimes that takes a season to find that, where that is in your home, where it is in maybe you have a bedroom and it's just a corner of your bedroom. For me, I purchased it's called a snug chair, and it's from Our House Furniture, arhaus.com. And it was so therapeutic for me to sit in that chair that became my meditation chair. And the whole thing is just a cushion. It's like a big poof, like a beanbag made into a chair. But it's got some structure to it so that you have support for your arms and your back. That was my thing, is I wanted to lean up against something that didn't hurt, that didn't cause pain in my back. And this snug chair is just literally a miracle. So the corner of my room became my meditation space. And so what I normally recommend is to find some way, and if you're in a chair, your chair can become your meditation space as well. You would just create your environment around you to be inviting and comfortable. Whatever that is to you. sometimes it's flowers. I will put a fresh bouquet of flowers on my desk right in front of my meditation chair, and just the scent and the fragrance. And that would kind of be at the bottom of that medicine pyramid, the plants, right? Like that flowers is medicine. It could be. And to me, it actually is, as I'm breathing in those beautiful smells and my eyes are closed and I'm really letting go of all the worldly and physical issues that I might have. I'm really letting go. And so, letting go could be said to be what mind work is as well. And then the last thing, and this is super simple, if we can find ourselves the mindfulness and the comfortable space to do this, then we can start breath work and we can start actually working on our breathing processes to be able to create a more peaceful environment for our body. And we often think that doctors are responsible to give us the answers, or that a therapist is responsible to give us exercises or tell us what to do. But in my life and in my journey with FSHD, I've just found that my self-healing is a priority to focus on, not necessarily searching anymore. Now that I have the diagnosis, it's like, what am I going to do with this? And am I still going to depend on others to find me an answer? Or am I going to find, like you mentioned earlier too, you began to do so much research for your own self, Lanwabo. And that is what happens to most of us when we receive a diagnosis such as this. We really are going into our own self and finding what can work for us based on what we believe, based on where we're at in our diagnosis and in our, physical progression. I often don't look back and hear and read what the doctors have told me and what the diagnosis is. Like, I often don't even look at all of that. I focus on all of these steps and things that I can still focus on. And every now and then I still have to look at that. I had a follow-up yesterday with my physician and that oversees my diagnosis. And it was the first time I'd seen her since I had begun actually all of these resources together. I will tell you, in the beginning, when I first found cannabis, which I consider to be at the top of that holistic pyramid, that's all I was using. I even found myself not even eating sometimes. I would skip meals because I would rather smoke because it was so relieving. It was such a big therapeutic resource that I was like, I don't need to eat any of this plant. And so what I found was that there are ways that we can still overdo nature and overdo things that are actually healthy for us. So it was my holistic physician, my integrative physician, that helped me to see that there was benefits in nutrition and food. And then remember, I mentioned the nutritionist, and she's the one that really helped share resources and research about how even just eating protein can literally help our muscle bulk. And I know there's not a lot of studies on specific things like this, as far as the clinical research and what's actually going to work. So that's where we can do it ourselves. We can, I say I do clinical research on myself. I keep documentation each day. I don't so much now that I feel like I'm in a good regimen and routine each day. And, seasons change, right? So when winter comes and it's colder, oftentimes there are other things that I will switch around in my routine so that based on my environment, I'm still feeling good. But what you probably notice here in this list is there's no list of physical exercise. There's nothing I actually do to actually quote workout. I consider these 4 things that I listed my workout, and all of the patients, and I say, clients, people that I've been helping through this season. I've been open in my center since Veterans Day of 2022 is when I opened. And so the testimonies that we're receiving and the benefits that we see people receiving really are, miraculous. So I'm grateful and appreciative that I get to share these here with you. A lot of it might sound basic. A lot of it might sound like, well, this is all simple. This is really simple and it might not work. This might not be good enough. And I can understand that because that was the way I thought as well for many, many years. I just kept going to the doctor. And if that doctor didn't have an answer, I'd go to another doctor and I'd see maybe he had an answer. And what happened was I went through a bunch of trials, dozens of medications, as you probably know too. There's all these different, experimental, they're trying to find us an answer. And so I basically gave my body to the experiments for a while. I even had major surgeries where they removed body parts, bones, structures, thinking that that would help me have more function, but it did not. And it reduced function at the time. So I've just come to a personal place where I'm not seeking for answers. I believe I have found the solution to my FSHD, and I'm not going to, promote that as a miracle solution for everyone, but I do promote holistics for anyone that is open to it. And then if anybody wants to know about the breathing, we can actually go through a little bit of that if we have time.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Thanks for that already. The points that you've mentioned, I believe, have sparked a lot of interest already in those listening, because there is this essentially meditation and letting go of what you cannot control. Can you hear me? Okay, so I believe that is such an important part. And if there's anybody that wants to ask any questions to Rita right now, that will be you can speak up or raise your hand, because from what I see here, because from what I know already, you spoke about the existential crisis that one might have, particularly once diagnosed, particularly whether it's late onset diagnosis, and whether you had a job, you were able to, maybe you were an athlete, maybe you had all these dreams and aspirations to go into, and the type of depression that one might go to now that you start to feel yourself getting weaker. And just actually finding your own space, sitting down, meditating, how important that might actually be to one's mental health and bringing down the stress levels, because our body is already at constant stress, because we are also having to fight against gravity, fight against ourselves, and there's so much going on. But you say letting go and meditating and trying to figure out what you can do now. I think that is such an important part. And we would definitely like to see a bit of demonstrations, if you have, whether it's from breathing, the types that you have talked about. And we would also like if you could email those tips. We will also send them out via email blast, so you can just email them via the same email address, and we will send them through. So yes, the floor is back to you.
Wonderful. Hi, Rick.
Hi. Well, great. Oops, got dogs in the background. Great response and commentary. Existential crisis. I mean, this was a whole different approach to feeling fit today. So it was very nice to hear your approach. And I thought you brought up a lot of interesting approaches and topics and things to think about. I've been in many clinical trials with the FSH Society, and I'll let you know that I wouldn't put down on my resume that cannabis has been a part of your experience, because that excludes you from some clinical trials. So
yeah, and that's great to know. Yeah.
Some friends have said, "Well, not me then."
Yeah,
so in any event, go ahead.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because people definitely need options and choices, and if you limit your choices and options, then that some people don't want that limit. So yeah.
Well, it's that self-healing trajectory that you've taken that I think is what we all need to do, and not just wait for somebody to tell us what we can do and can't do and how to approach it. You'll discover. So you've been recently diagnosed, and right before the pandemic. So it's kind of neat that you've appeared here with us, because it took me a long time to find the FSH Society. I was originally with the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and segued into the FSH Society. So congratulations, first of all, in being associated with the society and getting on here and sharing, and the progress that you found for yourself and your movements. And there's a little being right there.
You see him? You can stand up. Stand up.
Hello, hello.
This is Jackson,
Hi.
my son.
Hey, Jackson.
Hi.
I'm Rick.
Hi, Rick.
Anyway, so your discovery, I mean, you kind of went through the idea that you were unable to do certain things physically with your arms and stuff like that. So how did the diagnosis come about? I mean, those of us that have the experience of later in life, we discover all of a sudden we've had FSH all of our lives and can look back after the diagnosis and recognize all of those stumbling blocks. So how did it happen? I mean, how did you
Yeah. The simplest way to explain that is because we were looking at a misdiagnosis too much is what happened. And, the surgeries and all that was the misdiagnosis. And so I don't like to go into that. I used to have a lot of pain because of that. Well, I didn't even need these surgeries. And there I was doing them because I thought they would help. I didn't even, now today, I don't even go there in my mind. I just realized that it took a while. But an integrative physician is who really diagnosed me properly and with a proper, what we realized later was that I really didn't have a full physical evaluation even with any physician that had actually attempted to help me. My issue began in my shoulder blades and in my back, but because my issues were always, quote, with my arms, they were always focused on this part. I mean, literally, physically, the doctor would look at just this part. And so my wing scapula and the detachment of my scapula and that issue was actually what this integrative physician found first, and then realized the next that it was FSHD due to the other symptoms. And I've been at the Muscular Dystrophy Center in Georgetown here locally, and we've done different blood tests. And what we found is that there's a lot of I guess you'd call it system involved when you get deeper into things, and our insurance wasn't wanting to pay for a lot of they called it experimental testing to figure out exactly what kind. And so once a few $1,000s in, and I actually quit going to the MD center because it was just, it wasn't the answer that I was looking for. Because once the diagnosis was there, they were just there to really confirm that and then offer solutions. And the solutions they had offered were wonderful. They were what I had already been doing all of my life due to the symptoms, like deep massage therapy or light massage therapy, whichever I needed during that season, aqua therapy, hot aqua therapy, where you're actually submerged in a hot tub for a period of time. And it's similar to a meditation because it's usually 15 to 20 minutes. And it usually resets the pain, I call them pain pathways and receptors. So it was a little bit of a journey going to different physicians and asking just what everyone knew within their learning and education. But it wasn't until I had found a physician who had been in the Western medicine industry for about 35 years. And then he had been an integrative physician now for another 20 years. So he just knows the human body. He's very advanced when it comes to those kinds of studies, which many doctors aren't. Many physicians I found after that find their specialty, and that's what they do. They're very narrow. It's just one part of your body. If you got breast problems, if you got development problems in your arms, let's look at your arms. It was the first time I'd been to a physician that actually said that I'm more than just a physical body, and that there are parts of my, say, mind or even gut that can affect every part of my body, even down to my toes, and even my like fertility and that kind of stuff. Like it could be something here versus something here that can affect, quote, fertility. So those kinds of ideas and thoughts, I had not come to that awareness. And when he was saying those things, and this was like a 2 to 3 hour, appointment. It wasn't like most physicians get 20 minutes with you and they're supposed to help you figure out something within that time. You know, the system is just very, it's finding its way, right? So I think that I do believe that finding an integrated physician was the biggest part of my journey, and I say finding my answer, my solution. So like now I wouldn't think about, oh, well, I can't do a trial if I'm using medical cannabis. I found the answers, and it's not just one, right? It's not just medical cannabis, and it's not just cannabis, it's medical cannabis. We have a system and a regulation in this state. It is recreational here now as of this month, but the medical cannabis community is where recreation started. Like, there would be no recreational cannabis anywhere legal if it wasn't for nonprofit organizations helping for medical cannabis. And pediatrics is actually where medical cannabis began. There was epileptic patients who needed help for their seizures, and they were pediatrics, they were children, and the seizure medicine wasn't working. And this is many years ago, but I volunteer with the biggest nonprofit in the nation for medical cannabis. And so there's definitely things to think of, yeah, on this journey. Once you get into the holistics and once you really dive in, there are considerations, like you said, they're important to know. Yeah, but that was my answer.
Well, that was just a tip. Anyway, so it wasn't a neurologist that's discovered
Yes.
what you had. It
Yes.
was?
Yes.
Because that for most of us, it's only until you get to a neurologist that they have the background to understand what's going on. Everybody else just kind of goes, wonder what that is, you know? And
Yeah.
afterwards they apologize and say, well, maybe I should have known, but that's not true. So many of us have this FSH as an inherited thing. Are you aware of anybody in your family history that may have had it?
No, I was adopted when I was 8, and I still have some contact with my birth family, though, and I did contact them after my diagnosis and ask some questions. And from what they know, no, they don't know of anybody. My dad's side of the family actually came here from Germany only 2 generations ago, so they don't know deep into the history. My birth mother's history, that's the side that I really don't know much about. I didn't have a lot of that family to actually connect with and learn more. So yeah, and I for a long time was stuck on that. Like, is this genetic, and are my kids going to struggle as well? And I was almost depressed over it for a while. And, you know, in the meditating and in the letting go and the mind work and spirit work and all of the things I had mentioned, I've been able to just let that go too. And that was just a fear of the future. And it's almost like I wanted to know for sure. But again, when they kept asking for thousands more money to know, that was when I just let it go. And I was like, well, I don't have the money to know, to find out the deeper answer. So I just literally gave it to God and gave it to divine intervention, and whatever's supposed to be will be based on what their body is and what they're manifesting for their own life. I don't believe that just because I do have this that they are gonna struggle. There are some things I notice that I can't help but notice in their body structure, and I just basically go with it on function. When the time comes where if their functioning is you know, an issue or something, then I would definitely take them. But I have not taken my children in or anything like that.
Well, existential crisis. Wonderful. So you know, years ago, it was very expensive to get the diagnosis, the DNA test, and it was the very first clinical trial that I got involved with that they did it for free for me, and they sent it over to Holland. So I didn't have that expense. I could not afford it. But they do have them now for free. And you can find out through the FSH Society. There's a lab out in the West Coast that does it. So you just have to send a sample, and they can give you the diagnosis should you require it. And again, for some of these trials, they require you have an actual diagnosis. But that's for general information. That's not, you know, that's only if you're interested. I think you're on the right path.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Thank you so much for sharing. Great to meet you.
Thank you for being here.
We also have Nancy Folk, who has raised her hand.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, how are you? I am very interested in the breathing tech. You said you could show us some of the breathing work, and I'd be interested in seeing
Okay.
some.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Yes. And the reason that I mentioned that too is because most people think that just sitting and breathing is breath work, but it's really not. There's so many details that go into when we're breathing and what parts of our mind and body are actually activating during, say, quote, an in-breath or an out-breath. And so what I found was there is specific ways that we can practice our breathing. I just call it a practice. I would actually consider it my workout when I was first diagnosed, and that was what my workout was. For 15 minutes in the morning and for 15 minutes in the afternoon, I would do my breath work, and that was my workout. And at the time, I actually contacted someone that was a professional, and it's called somatic breath work. And so that was where I got the explanation of what the specific breathing should be and if it mattered. I didn't even think it mattered, but apparently it does. You could actually be breathing and totally stressing yourself out more. It's bizarre, but I didn't even know that. So the simplest way to describe it and to do the practice, and the best way to remember, is just that it's super simple, that we want our in-breath to be shorter than our out-breath, but you want both to be as long and slow as possible. Another tip is your in-breath, you generally, if possible physically, to be through your nose like this. And when you breathe in through your nose, what you want to notice is that your abdomen expands first versus your chest. So when you're breathing in, you're doing a really deep breath. And this is why you want to go slowly, because a lot of us do have muscular and functional, issues with whatever part of your body it may be. But even breathing is working out our muscles and our, body. So you want to go slow, because if there are muscles that haven't been worked out in a while, we can still have, say, cramps. I've gotten, cramps in different parts of my body as I've been learning to do proper breath work. So in through your nose, into your abdomen. And then if your breath can get longer and longer, what you'll do is you'll begin to fill up your abdomen, and you'll still have some in-breath left to then go ahead and fill up a little bit of your chest too. A lot of times we start with our chest. So we really want to start with deep breathing into our abdomen. And I always say it's the embarrassing breath, where your tummy is going to get big. You want your belly to poke out. You're not trying to hold your stomach in and breathe. Like, you really want your belly and your abdomen to expand with your breath. And then if you could pause at the end of your in-breath before you let your out-breath out. And then your out-breath, if possible, let out through your mouth with the open mouth. And slow and long. But the reason sometimes this is said to go in through your nose and out through your mouth is because our nose and our this system basically is a detoxer. It'll cleanse whatever is not only what we're breathing in, but also what's already in here. There's a cleanse, sort of like a detox going on. So when you open your mouth to breathe it out, you're actually releasing toxins. And again, there's some clinical research on this. You can Google it about breath work and releasing toxins. But if you breathe out through your mouth, it has been said that we are releasing toxins, not only from our bodies, but also from our minds and our energy, who we really are. And so I tend to practice that way. Another thing you'll notice as you begin to practice breath work is if you commit to a daily routine of practicing, your breaths will begin to get deeper and longer. You might start to be able to breathe slower. And then that follows you into every day. It literally becomes part of how you breathe every day. So we can probably all agree if we're releasing as many toxins as we can from our body, we'll probably feel a little bit better. And that's the beauty. After the breath work session, again, I would commit to, you can do whatever time is comfortable for you. But I would attempt to sit for 15 minutes each time. And so the repetitive of that over and over and over again, your body basically learns a new way to breathe. And I know for me, being in pain and having issues with my muscles, often I used to not breathe. There were times where I'd be holding my breath. This just felt better. My muscles weren't expanding and retracting. If I'm not breathing, maybe that's better. And it wasn't. It's not better. You've probably heard, keep moving, keep your muscles moving as much as you can. And so breath work is a way that we can do that.
So is that in addition to the meditation that you're doing, or is that part of the meditation? Because breathing is part of meditation, of course, but I don't know.
Well,
in your
no,
meditation, it might be separate. I don't know.
It is. The meditation I guide is different. It's a mantra meditation, and
Okay.
you're not focusing on your breath at all. You're focusing on a mantra. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the 15 minutes of meditation and 15 minutes of breath work in
Yes.
the AM and the PM.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
And you want to, go with your comfort level, because some deep breathing exercises the next day, your abdomen and diaphragm might be sore. You might find that your core, you're also going to be strengthening your core, which are the muscles deep within your abdomen and diaphragm. So if there's any soreness or discomfort the next day, definitely give yourself a day to rest. Now, the meditation is definitely can be practiced every day.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Also, I'd just like to ask a question, Rita. For those who are sitting in a chair and don't have got limited range of motion, you spoke about a bit of yoga poses. Keeping in mind we differ in terms of our capabilities and our limits.
Right.
Are there any types of yoga poses or poses that one might actually be able to do in addition with these meditation poses, mantras as well, in terms of just to also maybe, as we say, it's an exercise of the mind, but maybe they just want to move a certain part of their bodies? How would they be able to go about that?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. Yes. So in the training that I've been doing with my meditation teacher, they teach asanas. That's what they call them, ASANAS. And they're basically what you mentioned, just very simple, basic poses that you can do either sitting or standing. And the way I started doing that was I would just, instead of sitting to do my breath work, I would stand. And so that's a whole nother experience, because you're using a totally different set of muscles and body structure to stand versus sit. So that is actually the first pose. It's simply standing and then doing your breath work while you're standing. And for a lot of us, that is a workout. To being able to stand for that period of time and practice breathing is a workout. So a lot of times that's the only pose I would do in the beginning. And then I did start seeing and being introduced to others, and they're very basic. Another one is go from your standing pose to arms, whatever it is they can do. If they're, if your range of motion is very limited, then you basically just lift your arms as much as you can. And it's not a 15-minute hold or anything like that. When you're first doing these poses, you're really just trying them out. You're just standing, you're trying that out, seeing how good that feels. Does it feel good or not? And then as you're lifting your arms, you're basically trying it out. You're feeling out your body and what is comfortable for you. And so at this point, I now can go arms raised all the way above my head. And that's not something I do in my day-to-day, living, my activities of daily living. I often find myself making my path easy. So I don't do things where I have to lift my arms up and grab stuff from a top shelf, like things like that. I just don't do anymore. I just don't. I've let myself go from those kinds of things. But when I practice my poses and the asanas, that's when my body gets to practice that. So it's less stressful. I'm mentally prepared that I'm about to do something physical. So it's not like a chore that I find myself in the day not being able to do. It's just a practice. And then you learn your body. So standing and then arms lifted, whatever distance is possible. And then arms down where you're actually touching your toes and bending your body. And again, this would be based on your functional level and your comfort, what you're comfortable with. If you can't actually bend all the way down, a lot of people will put their arms or hands on right below their knees and then rest right there, kind of like a halfway down pose. And then if you can continue to go farther and farther as you practice each day. And then from there, you can just imagine after your arms are up and then down, then you can practice out, even behind. Like I do now, do one, it's humble warrior. I have names for these that I have found, but they're not going to mean much to you if it's just the name. But there's different names for the different types of poses. And then what, there was another, maybe that was the answer. I can't remember. Did I get?
Oh yes. That was a very good answer as well. Thank you very much. We definitely understood. We have Rakesh, who has a hand raised.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for taking my question. Thanks, Lord Rabo. So I know Lord Rabo mentioned earlier, and you just reaffirmed the statement, everybody's, has dystrophy. It affects their muscle different ways. But so question is, when you're doing stretching or exercises, what would be your marker, or what would be your kind of alert? Okay, this is how much I can do, and doing more than that, maybe doing more good than not, maybe not doing that good than doing good. Right.
Yeah, that's definitely, we don't want to cause harm or anything like that. So what I usually use for my own and the way I instruct others is a little bit of discomfort is okay, but pain is not okay. So if you're feeling pain and as you're attempting to do a movement, then that's not okay. We don't ever want to feel pain or give ourselves pain. I describe it as a discomfort. When we're doing something that is, you can literally say it, out of our comfort zone. We will be, quote, uncomfortable. And like in the beginning, I didn't even, I was under the mindset that I couldn't do any asanas or yoga or poses. There was a time where I would tell people, oh no, I can't do yoga. I have FSHD and it limits me so much. I cannot even do a yoga pose. And basically doing these poses began with me I quit saying that. And so I quit putting my mind in the limited state, and I just started to open my mind up to more possibilities and potential for my body. Because, there were physicians that even said that I potentially might not be able to use my arms again after a while, like that season of atrophy that I was going through could continue progressing, and I would have no arm use at the end. Like there was all kinds of questions of what's happening to me and what can I do? What can I still look forward to? So one, I would also remind us to be easy and gentle with ourselves and to be okay with, quote, our limits. If we do perceive we have limits, to realize that that's okay. And we don't actually have to be doing anything. And being patient and comfortable with ourselves is the main thing. When you're starting to do anything different than what you're already doing, just know that there will be discomfort. And so that's my marker. If it goes beyond discomfort and I feel a burning or a stinging, anything that's painful, I immediately stop. And there are times. When I first started the humble warrior pose, which is where you clasp your hands behind your back, that was very painful. Even just moving one arm behind my back was excruciating. And I'm like, no, I won't do that. I can't do that one. So I continued doing the first three that I mentioned, just the standing, the arms up, and the arms down. I probably did those just 3 asanas for months before I ever added anything on. I just got to be where I felt what was comfortable enough. It was causing enough discomfort that I knew my muscles were quote working out. You know, when you work out, it's kind of bizarre, but a workout for our muscles is actually tearing your muscle down, breaking it to pieces, and then it heals bigger than what it was. So do we really want to tear down our muscle to heal bigger? I don't know. You know, and again, that's a theory that people have depending on what you believe. I even went to a personal training course. I became a personal trainer because I wanted to make sure that I knew all the little nuances of the body and what I was feeling and sensing. And that has helped a lot with as far as knowing what my limits are. But I would say pain. I would say pain would definitely be an indicator that you're going too far, and keeping it, you know, mostly comfortable is what I say.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I believe Rakesh was answered very well. Rita, it was a pleasure having you for the FSHD Fit sessions. We thank you very much for taking time out of your day, your schedule, to just share a lot of your expertise, a lot of your, it really helped a lot in terms of being patient with yourself. You know, just to quote yourself, just to quote you, just be patient with yourself, patient with ourselves, and let go of things that we cannot be able to control anymore, and just look at the possibilities that you may be able to do now. It's such a great advice that I believe we can all use in our day-to-day lives. So thanks for that, Rita, a lot, and we hope to see you again. But this will conclude today's session. And if you could please just email those bullet points as well, and we will email blast them to everybody as well. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See you next time.